Everybody, this is Perch. As we look to 2021 and the comic industry, kind of as it's going to roll out over the next several years, there's a lot that's up in the air. There's a lot that we don't know, and there's a lot that will remain to be seen in terms of how markets are going to kind of consolidate. Are we going to get into situations of distribution problems? Are there going to be lingering effects of the pandemic that stretches well into 2021 after a vaccine is already around? What's the long-term health of the direct market? There's a lot of questions. A lot of people walk around with kind of seeming, like presenting like they know the answers. I've heard a number of people say, well, the direct market is dead. It's already dead. It's just, and the numbers don't support that, but it definitely has problems. It definitely has big problems. But there are a couple things that we do know, and we can look to the next 2 years and say, well, here's a case where either companies have already changed or are going to change imminently because the facts are extremely clear. One of those is price point. We see that at this point, and this is not happy news for me, but in terms of the major publishers or even the mid-tier publishers, the $2.99 price point is going to be a rarity. That's going to be the very bottom of where a lot of people are going to play. And even though that you do see occasional, like Alterna has cheaper comics, you'll see a couple other companies do some things with newsstand or newsprint. Sorry, by and large, the vast majority of comics that are going to be sold are going to settle in on this $3.99 price point, and in many cases, buck higher. That is it's impossible to deny at this point that we're going to go backward. Now, is this healthy for the industry? I still maintain it's not. I think that the price point is definitely out of whack with what people can spend and kind of the relative value people are putting on comics. But regardless, we're going to go into 2021 and 2022, and we're going to test those limits. And, there's going to have to be a major kind of collapse or change in order to come back from that. But if you look at the history of products in general anywhere, you don't see price drops, certainly not price drops that dramatically at scale for a business like this. So we are settled in on that. And again, some people will comment going, comics should be cheaper. I agree. This is not me saying this like, yay, good news. It's fact we have to look at. The other thing that I think is pretty clear at this point is that we are going to go through 21 and 22 with a much stronger reliance on events. It is, and it's been that way for a while, but any kind of illusion that heavy marketing or heavy funding is going to be put to just a normal ongoing title, it's clear that is not going to be the case. It's not been the case at Marvel for some time now, and by all indications and the artists and scheduling and everything they're lining up throughout 2021, we've seen 2 months already, but we've seen some advanced teases of what they're going to do for the summer, and it's really going to be a large number of events, a large number of either intertitle or multi-title crossovers, and the kind of the single issue stuff is going to be the glue between these events. And the idea that you're going to have a single title that you're going to just promote for itself out of Marvel is just not really going to be the case. And with DC as well, I know a lot hasn't been announced, but the little bits that I've been able to see of advanced promos and things that are going to happen, through the late spring and into the summer and the fall, shows a much heavier reliance on storylines as well. Now, maybe a little bit different in that it looks like the grouping of kind of family titles is going to be more the name of the game for DC. You're not seeing, like Death Metal 3 and 4 coming out next year, but definitely this idea of kind of more theme, more event books is definitely in the cards for everyone, and a bigger motivation on launches and relaunches. And that's just, again, it's another sign of the times. It's where we're at. It's where things are going, and it's what the industry is settling into for a period of time. The other kind of interesting part is that we're seeing, I think, less of a prediction and more of just kind of how comics are being marketed and billed at this point, is that you're going to see more, the comic industry slowly drift toward more groupings. And what I mean by that's a little bit what I just said about events. You're going to see more of an emphasis on the Wonder Woman family of titles, and the Green Lantern family of titles, and the Superman family of titles, and the Batman family of titles. And you're going to see the companies start to kind of pivot to, rather than marketing a line, like say marketing Marvel, it's marketing the X books and marketing the Avengers books, and you're going to see more of these kinds of kind of segmentation happening, and I think you'll see a lot more happening within those segments, and a lot less just kind of random crossover. I think books are going to have a hard time surviving if they're not in one of those bubbles. If you're producing a book of Marvel and it doesn't fit into kind of the Spider-Man world, the Avengers world, the X-Men world, there's going to be a lot of questions about, where do you fit, and should you have a book? Should there be, production money and printing money that should go somewhere else? Should it go somewhere to strengthen the overall brand? Over on DC, you're definitely going to see that. If you're not in one of those easy to identify groupings, then there's going to be questions about, why do you have a comic? And for the short term, at least for the next 2 years, it seems really clear we're going to see a lot less experiments outside of those bubbles. In DC, I think it's going to be, from all indications, it's going to be very, very drilled down. The odds of seeing a Plastic Man book are zero. The odds of seeing a experiment within the Batman universe, quite high, but the odds of them just doing a second Batman title or a third Batman title is the highest still. That's where we're at. Having a Wonder Woman book and having a Yana Fleur book, that's going to be where the experiments are had. That's going to be where the growth is going to come. And so a lot of the longer tail of characters are either going to have to find a home inside of one of these family books, or there's just not going to be room for them to continue. Over in Marvel, it's looking like it's going to be very similar. You have the Spider-Man kind of world, you have the Venom kind of world, you have the X-Men, you have the Avengers. And so if you're running around in your Captain Marvel, say, or your Deadpool, or your, even books like Black Panther, there's going to become pressure to align your books with one of these banners, align your books with one of these other groupings, and stop, playing as a harder to categorize, harder to market book. Now, when I say this, it sounds like a prediction, and to some extent it is. I mean, I'm forecasting out farther, but like I said, there's some facts on the table that we can see. We can see in how the solicitations are being done and how they've subtly changed the groupings over the last 6 months at both Marvel and DC of how they're promoting comics, where everything is really being pushed into a group. And that's intentional. It's making it easier for them to just manage a line. Now, that can be good or bad. The good part about it is it will give some books a little bit more of a leg up, maybe a little bit more marketing than they had before, because they'll be a little bit easier to describe and categorize, and that's probably to the benefit of a lot of these titles. But it also means that there's been some really great books out there that kind of fly under the radar. Things over DC like The Last God. Or over at Marvel, there's been some books over the years. I mean, something like Tom King's Vision, that was a good series. It would have a hard time finding a place as we kind of limit the things that we're doing. And so that's a bit of a shame. The other kind of bit that I think is going to be a lot more clear in about a week and a half is that we're setting up for the new normal between Marvel and DC of who the go-to creators are. And you're seeing a little bit of a consolidation of fewer big name, or not big name is the wrong word, but kind of a smaller set of writers and artists at Marvel and writers and artists at DC. And it's a recalibration. I think with Bendis moving over a couple of years ago, you saw a bunch of kind of new names move from one company to the other. And it looks very clear that there's going to be a little bit more of a wall between the two companies. You're going to see fewer and fewer people doing both. So people are going to have to land on one or the other. And it also looks like the names at DC are shifting to some extent. And it's just a different set of people that are now kind of driving that company forward. Over at Marvel, you see maybe a little bit of a, not doubling down, but just a little bit of more of a recommitment to the creators that they feel are strong and are going to push the company forward. And you're going to see a smaller group there. And that all indications is that's what we're getting. So I think that 21 and 22 are going to be a bit of a reset year to some extent for both companies as they they market less because they're marketing groups and they've got a smaller set of people that are in the company and moving. I think you're setting that new price point. And overall, you're just seeing a little bit of a shift in kind of how the things are going to be a little bit clearer. And that when I say clearer, I just mean fewer moving parts. And that's again, that's positive and negative. It's positive in the sense that it's a little bit less random, a little bit easier, both as a retailer and as a customer, to understand what the company's doing. But it's negative in the sense that if you don't like a group, if you're not a fan of the X books, then that's a huge section of titles that are going to kind of get moved out and away. Both Marvel and DC in different areas have commented on at least some appreciation for what the X universe did with the Zoom calls and the what's being billed as the tighter coordinated X office. Now, I think that's a little bit of smoke and mirrors. I don't think it's as coordinated as they would have you believe. I don't, and the comics reflect that. But with everybody working from home and with kind of this bigger realization that, hey, you've got Zoom and you've got Teams and you've got these other products out there that are intending to provide collaboration, that we should use that. So you're going to see that happen as well. You're going to see, and it will all kind of fold into this idea of groupings of books, and there's an interesting financial component to this as well that a lot of people are talking about. It is a subject for a video for another day, which is if you have a group of writers, like say in the X office, it allows you to get away with fewer people because you get people on a call and you get them to kind of toss around ideas and it becomes kind of design and write by committee. And in that mix, you can get away with fewer writers because you got people sharing ideas and kind of all collaborating. So once you get in on those things, it allows you to knock off, 2 or 3 writers out of the pool. And so from a pure financial standpoint, the powers that be at Marvel and DC are going to look at that and go, oh, here's a way for us to actually save money and not crowdsource, but crowd write these books as opposed to having individual writers that get paid separately. It is going to change that model. What's interesting, and I said I'll do a whole video on this going into it, but what's interesting is that I don't know that the writers completely understand what's coming, in that this is going to drive down some of their rates. That is extremely clear, and it's going to provide a little bit less opportunity than I think people realize over time. But anyway, that's just a brief look at kind of what we're in for and what we can see coming from the big two, certainly, but comics in general. I think 2021, 2022 are going to be pretty curious years the thing to watch and really pay attention to is what's going on in the indies, and we'll spend some time talking about that as well. But what do you think? Am I way off base? Am I right? Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments below. How do you react to all this stuff? Want to hear your opinions, but most importantly, like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, all those things. Join the channel. It's a lot of fun in theory. And thanks for listening.